Hi folks, I'd like to show you how to add the info box carousel to another page on your site. And really the easiest way to do this is to open a page that already has the carousel. We're going to copy the code from that page into the other page. A couple ways you could do this. Let's just find a page. Our index page, for example, has the carousel already in it, and we're going to copy it into our services page, for example. So we're just going to open up both pages. Right. Let's start by let's, on the index page, switch over to code view, and the first thing we want to do is check to see if there is a link for this component, a style sheet link specifically for this component is what I should say, because certain components require a little more CSS than other components. Things like the featured video or the quote rotator, the small one, they don't require a lot of CSS, so they don't require their own unique style sheet. But larger components like the info box carousel, the testimonial slider, things like that, there's a lot more CSS going on, and it's a lot easier to edit the CSS if it has its own separate style sheet. So that's why we've used separate style sheets for certain components. No use loading in extra CSS and code if it's not going to be used in the page. So in the header of our index page, which does have the info box carousel, we take a look down here about line number 53 or so. There's a section for component style sheets, and if we sort of look through the list here, we'll eventually stumble across the link to the info box carousel. Like I said, this is just one of those things where you would need to check to make sure it's here. And for this particular component, it is. So we're just going to copy this link into our services page, into the same editable region in the header. All right, scroll on down. There it is. There's the component style sheets. We already have the contact panel in there, and now we're going to add to that the info box carousel. Cool. Next, we're going to get the actual component and code for the info box. Now let's take a look at this in our browser first. Some components are what we call full section or full screen components. In other words, they'll take up an entire section of the page. They won't have anything on the left or the right side. Basically, it takes up the entire width of the browser. Although it might not fill it full screen, they're so large that they don't have anything, or they don't fit well into areas of the page that have left or right columns. Whereas down here lower in the page, we have a side menu, we have a featured video, and we have a quotes rotator small that do fit well into multiple column layouts. As a matter of fact, the accordion panel, same thing. It fits into a section of the page that works nicely with columns. It can also fit full screen if you wanted it to, but things like the info box, because we have images with headings and buttons, really it's not going to work super well if we put it into a narrower section of the page. So we like to give it its own section. And for components like that, basically you just have to look at your page, determine whether it's something that would fit well into a smaller section of a page, and then when we do the copying and pasting, let's go back in here, we can have two options then. We can copy just the library item, or we can copy the entire wrapper for that, what we call the container wrapper for that item. And we can actually do it in the design window, but I'm going to show you how to do it in code window because it's a little bit safer, I would say. Although you don't need to know HTML, it's just a safer approach to copying and pasting. But first thing I do is I click on the placeholder graphic like so, and then I find that, okay, there's my lib item, which tells me that it's a library item. If I hover over it, you probably can't see it too well in the video, but it does tell me that it is the info box carousel library item, and also the obvious info box carousel wrapper that's right beside it. And then we move up and we see that it's actually inside of a div container, right? So if I go to my code view, right, I will see here that we have the info box carousel and its wrapper, and right above it we have these three styles here. When you see something like this where you have the div class of container wrapper, container, and row, that's a good indicator that this component is within a section of the page all to itself. Okay, and in this case we've actually wrapped the entire container wrapper. We've said, hey, info box carousel section. So what we want to do is we want to grab the entire section for this component. So we're just going to start here and sort of scroll all the way down like so. Lots of scrolling involved until we hit what we call the closing tag, or the info box carousel section, the second comment tag for that. Okay. we could also do this little method right here, but it wouldn't grab the comment tags. We can sort of put our cursor right here on the word content wrapper or anywhere within this class. We can go down to the quick tag selector and just click right there. That selects everything for us, so if we were to cut it from the page, it would just leave the two tags behind, which isn't a bad thing. It's not going to have any problems. Just if we wanted to carry these tags over to our other page, we'd have to manually scrub through and copy them. All right. And that's what I'm going to do. I'm just going to hold my shift key. Oops. I'm going to scroll on down until I find the closing tag. And then I'm going to hold that and I'm going to copy it. Copy. Go to my services page. Now on the services page, I need to figure out where I'm going to put this. So if I preview my services page in a web browser here first, there we go. Remember I mentioned that this is one of those components that would work well in a section by itself, but maybe not so much in a column. So the services page is basically made up of two columns. We have a column over here and a column over here. If we scroll on down, okay, there's no separate sections by themselves, so we could put the info boxes above, or we could put it below. I choose to put it above because the info boxes, really what they are, is a really good navigational tool to grab your visitor's attention so they have a quick boop, blurb of information and a picture, and it prompts them to click a button or a link within that text or click the image, taking them to a page in your site. It took me a long time to say that. So we want to put it up higher on the page because it'll probably have a better click-through rate if we do that. So we'll put it right above the "Our services are here for you" heading. So I just have to go find that heading on the page. There it is right there. Okay. And for those of you that like to do things in the design window and you're not aware, if you hold the Shift, Control, and the I key, if you press those all at the same time, it gets rid of those sort of nasty, ugly style things that wrap around your content. So it just cleans up the page a little bit. Okay, back to finding a place in your page to paste the info box. We're just going to sort of double click on the word services, switch over to code view. There's my div class. We're going to sort of work our way up here until we find the instance editable, the main content region, and we're just going to put our cursor right below it and paste. Okay, and we're going to save and preview this once again in our browser. And there it is. There is the infobox carousel, copied from the index page and pasted into another page. And one of the reasons why I don't actually have a code snippet in the tutorials where you can copy and paste is because sometimes the code is altered slightly depending on the template. So it's best if you copy from what's current in your site to another page in your site as opposed to copying something from a tutorial that may or may not be current or up to date with your product.